This meeting in order. I don't have much to comment other than the fact that we did have both Christmas party and our Santa Claus parades, in the last or since the last meeting. One comment I do want to add, and I'm going to ask at some point that hello,
you're good.
Okay, I'm going to ask at some point that Public Works maybe respond, or whether the CAO respond with some input from Public Works about the possibility of actually keeping the parade route in the future where it was. I personally thought it was a lot better, and I heard a lot of positive feedback from people that they actually liked the route better. And I think there was good merit to the comments, because when you think about on Main Street, it's packed with the vehicles for people that want to get there, and then all the people that want to watch the parade are standing behind the vehicles trying to see the floats as they go by, where people said it just felt a lot more personable when it was on the back street. People could be on the sidewalk, they were closer to the parade, they just felt it went better. And I did ask our economic development officer if there was any concerns from the business owners on Main Street about the parade not going down there, and she said that she had already talked to the business owners about it, and that they felt it did not hurt them at all by not getting on the street. So at some point, or unless you want to comment now, Barry. Unless there's a reason not to do it, I did hear nothing but good comments about the fact that people did like it. Now, maybe it was just the fact that it was different, but people did seem to like the fact of the route that we had for the parade. Something to consider for next year.
You want the tractor back?
We
decorated in Victoria Park and leave it there.
Oh, yeah, I will share my concerns about the Huron East float going forward, because there are some things we could do a little bit better. And I'll share right now. Had my grandkids on it, and the grandkids loved it. But when the grandkids were sitting on chairs in the center of the float, they couldn't see the people. People couldn't see them. Now, my one granddaughter, 4 years old, she was standing up in the chair facing out, and when she was waving, of course, you get a 4-year-old in a parade float waving out, everybody waved back at her. And I thought it would be nice if we could, whether it be bales of straw or whatever, so that people could sit and face out, because we were all sitting on the float facing in, which made it a little harder to actually interact with people on the sidelines. So just got to take that into consideration. Whatever. Yeah. One was brilliant.
We'll talk, Barry. You can have it back, that's fine.
We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Can I get a secretary to reconvene? Second by Councilor Fisher. And that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East reconvene in an open session at 6:10 p.m. and that council went into closed session to discuss personnel matters about identifiable individuals relating to employee matters. All those in favor? The motion carries. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda? Councilor Steffler and Councilor Bertrand, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated December 5th of 2023 be adopted as all those in favor. And is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of the evening? Seeing none at this time. Motion for the minutes. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Dio, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East following council meeting minutes at the regular meeting of November 21st of 2023. Anyone? Here the consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to pull 8.5. Township of Fulton. We talk about trail conservation authority officers. They'd like to be classified as enforcement officers. You know, if they fairly. They basically do the same job. I just think that they're not getting paid accordingly.
Okay, and I'm glad you pulled that, and I would like to hear more information on that. And I'm going to ask for 8.3, and I'm asking for it because I really didn't understand what read, and I didn't know if there was any more information. Either staff or other members of council, if they understood it better than myself, could explain about that. Deputy Mayor. Or sorry, Councilor Fitch. Wow.
You're behind, young fellow.
Yeah, I am.
Thank you. Is 8.3 the Phragmites?
No, that was sorry, 8.4. 8.3 was the county of Prince Edward with the of water and waste management systems. And I didn't really understand what I was reading.
And then I would like 8.4 as well, please, Mr. Mayor. And I have a question if I may, Mr. Mayor.
So,
So two committee reports we got were 3 months ago. I just wondered what's going on. It takes 3 months to get a committee report.
I can-
And EDO.
Sorry, those were just minutes from previous meetings. The committee reviews those minutes and approves them. Sometimes the understanding is minutes don't need to be ready until the next meeting. So sometimes when there's a lag, then the minutes take a little bit longer to get completed. In terms of Economic Development Committee, I was informed yesterday that the wrong minutes were sent to me. So these actually should have been November meetings, and they will be on the next minutes agenda. So again, Economic Development reviews those meetings minutes as well before they come here. They are more for council for information, as the committee does approve their own minutes as well.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions at this time? Okay, I'm going to turn this back to staff at this point. Then can anybody in Great Man be considered?
I can answer your questions. I don't know whether Barry can.
Okay, well, I read it, and it still didn't make sense to me. All of what you were trying to accomplish.
I think it might be something we can speak with the source water protection group or to our CBO in terms of how it fits in.
I would ask at this point, then we actually pull these points and I guess anything we do, we're just receiving for information, correct?
That's correct.
But I would still like information back on it, because if I'm going to support anything, I'd like to know what I'm supporting. 8.4, the Clean Water Project Review Committee. Who is it that asked about that?
Councilor Fisher.
Councilor Fisher? Yeah. What is it you'd like to know?
I think there was something about grants and working with the county to control the Phragmites and invasive species.
I certainly got the impression that the county wanted all municipalities involved in the same program. And that was going to be one of my questions, Barry, was we have done some spraying in the past. I think the county has done some spraying in the past. Is this something they're hoping to spray, or was there a different way they were planning on attacking it? I think you're looking at different options. Conservation authority that we will do that for conservation authority, because they had the thickest road to spray it. Now, this is sort of a little shift of that program, I believe, more so to the county and the clean water. Right, but that group actually does put money towards projects. So that was kind of my question when I was reading this, was were they going to help cover the costs? Everybody in the county actually decided to at the same time. Okay. Any other questions, Bob?
That would be a win-win then for us if part of it was granted then.
I think in fairness, the deputy mayor and either one of us could bring this up tomorrow at county and ask the question. Thank you. Looks like
November. Oh, is it?
And you had one more.
Oh, yeah, just, I'd like to talk about conservation officers. They're dealing with enforcement and things like that. I think it's going to go so far. They're trained as far as enforcement officers, but they're just not compensated the same. Conservation officers. I'd like to see the support and it's more from our conservation officers that we have parks and things like that. Some of the things that they have to compensate for them. That's right now, that's what they're doing.
Okay, so at this point, we asking for you putting a motion forward.
I would just support that motion. But that's presented in
Do I have a second? Councilor Newell? Any other questions? All those in favor?
That was 8.3. Nope, sorry, 3.5. Sorry. 8.5. Yeah.
Okay, so then, did I get a move in the second or?
No.
I get a move in the second. Councilor Morrison and Councilor Fisher, that the consent agenda items 8.4 and 8.7 be received for information and approved. Public meeting period and not even vetting. Okay.
You should be that close together.
Welcome, and I do believe you have a presentation for us.
Thanks for having me. It's actually my first in-person council meeting, so don't hold me to anything, and I feel a little shaky here, but I am with Flashvote. So Flashvote is a scientific surveying platform, but we do scientific surveys a little bit differently. We make sure that they are faster for your residents to take. You guys get that information back faster, and they're also 90% cheaper than your typical scientific survey. So when starting this presentation, I do want to start off just kind of talking about public input in general. Sorry if I'm going to be bugging you.
Nope, that's that's fine.
Right, 4. Yeah. So how often do you think public sentiment matches how the whole community actually feels? So this is a question we like to start off with. No one wants to say anything out loud, that's okay, but try to think of a number in your head. How often do you feel like the input that you're getting, maybe that you're receiving at meetings or online or through email, truly represents the community as a whole?
I'm going to respond to that and say that probably the only people we're hearing from are the people that have a problem with something that's either being discussed or proposed.
So how, like, do you want to throw out a number?
I'm going to say there's probably lots of cases where it never exceeds 5%.
Wow, nailed it. So if you go to the next one. So around 5% of the time, the public input that you're actually receiving from your residents matches how the community feels as a whole. So it's a low percentage to have people. But you guys are getting inundated with this information and not only the information. So actually, 70% of the time, if you just did the opposite of what you're hearing, you'd be doing the right thing. So that's really hard to do because you're hearing one thing, and then 70% of the time, it's completely the opposite.
With my wife.
So we did a case study with a bunch of grad students actually at the Harvard Kennedy Business School. So what we did was we went out to figure out, is public input traditional methods, are they biased? and how. So, gonna go through this kind of rapidly this slide. So next slide. So first they did an in-person meeting. That's typically where we start, right? So in person, they said, hey, if we're gonna build a new community center, what do you guys want to see? So in person, they saw a lot of people wanted study, meeting, and event space, as well as health and social services. When we look at the demographics coming to an in-person meeting, we typically see that they're a little bit older, and honestly, they're mostly male. So they said this is obviously not a true representation of the community as a whole. So let's do an online survey. If you go to the next slide. So they did an online survey and they saw the same thing. So they're like, okay, we have a better representation online. You typically get a little bit younger demographics and more female. So typically you could look at this and say, this is pretty balanced based off of demographics. Then they did a flash vote survey. And they actually found out that 3 of the 4 topics were completely opposite to what they thought they had found. And that study, meeting, and event space were 2 of the lower ones, and actually people cared more about sports. So throughout this survey, we found out that traditional methods of community input are actually biased. If you go to the next 2. So why is it biased? Why is it a bad representation of the public? A lot of the times we look at this and we think demographics really leads this charge. It's actually self-selection. So to your point earlier, people selecting and choosing to share their opinion because they care about the topic. That's actually what's going to skew your data the most. You go to the next slide. You're hearing from either end. So either the people that really hate it and really have an axe to grind with the topic, or probably not as often, but the people that think it's great and don't think you should change anything. So I think you can go, yeah, probably 1 or 2. And yeah, perfect. So what you're missing is the whole community. How does the whole community think? How do regular people who don't really have a foot in the game, get in the game, to what do they think about this topic? So we worked with the community, and they actually came to us after they changed their service on their park, and morale was low. They were getting inundated with complaints. Everyone hates the parks now that they've changed the service. They're like, we didn't do too much for the service. The parks are still getting serviced, but they were getting nothing but complaints. Everyone hates the parks. So we did a flash vote survey. And we found out that the people that we're hearing from are 0.3% of their actual community. And actually, they received a rating 4 out of 5. People love the parks, but that 0.3% was so loud, they couldn't hear everyone else. Any questions or anything so far?
I don't disagree with information that you've given to us so far. I have a concern about how is it you actually get the people that we don't normally hear from to get us what their concerns or interests or desires are. How do you accomplish that?
I appreciate it. So yes, so to your point, how do we hear from the many, not just the noisy? How do we quiet that noise so we can truly understand what's going on in the community and how they feel? So you can, this one's kind of mistake. So that's why we came up with flash votes. So statistically valid community input that you actually get in 48 hours. So you're able to turn around decisions on projects or hot topics really fast with that statistically valid information from your residents. Okay. So we take large samples of your population and we curate professionally designed questions. Our surveys are only 5 questions, so it's under a minute for your residents to take. So it doesn't create survey fatigue, and people come back to take those surveys at a very high rate. I will walk through how to do it in more detail. So what I'm going to walk through now is how we help you sign up your residents. You pick a topic, we draft and launch that survey for you, and then the results get reported out. So next slide. So we help sign up residents. So we have worked on this for many years, and we've curated marketing that helps us create a panel of your community that is just open to take a survey no matter what topic. So I think I have an example to the next one. Yeah. So instead of asking them, do they have an opinion on a certain topic? Maybe it's the parade that you guys want to ask, or maybe it's what park or something else. Instead of asking them that topic, because you're going to talk about self-selection, you say, you have 1 minute a month to make the municipality of Huron better. Super open. Hey, I have 1 minute a month. That's really no time. Yes, I'm signing up. So you're signing up without that specific topic. So we help curate a nice little video that you guys can send out, as well as this image that you're seeing here, with everything kind of Huron Eats logo, all of that good stuff. And you guys can send it out through any channels that you currently have. So we see people do e-newsletters on their website, through their social media accounts, QR codes at meetings. We've actually seen communities that create t-shirts and different local government employees walk around with their t-shirts and say, hey, do you want to sign up for this? So it typically takes us about 2 weeks to help you guys build that process or that panel story. So people will come in, they'll ask to join, we'll look at it, we'll see if we're missing anything, if we need to kind of do more targeted marketing through those channels. Typically, it's pretty crazy, but you actually only need 100 people to create a scientific survey. So people think you need a ton of your residents coming in. You really just need 100 residents who have not self-selected based on that topic. So typically we like to see about 200 to 400 people sign up for that panel, because obviously not everyone is going to take the survey every single time it comes out, but we typically see about a 50 to 75% response rate for each survey that goes out. Yeah.
Well, and I'm always going to play devil's advocate for
Happy to hear.
like this, but it still goes back to the whole point is that we've done things in the past, but it's the people that always have an opinion, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, that you hear from over and over again. So how do you know you're not only getting those people signing up for this?
Yeah, so that is really what it comes down to. Again, it goes back to self-selection based off of topic. So if no one knows the topic, then they don't have anything to be super, oh yes, I'm definitely going to take this, because there's no topic around it. So you're not getting the bicycle people for the bike path, or the tennis people for the pickleball courts. It's just generalized. Yeah.
So you're 200 or so people you want to test. How do you, because you want to be able to have cross section of demographics.
Absolutely.
You don't want them to be all young, all old. How do you tackle that? I mean, how do you know who lives in what house, and how do you tackle that to get a fair?
Yeah, absolutely. You go to the next slide. Next one. This is our sign-up page. So in order to keep our surveys to 1 to 5 questions, we actually ask those demographics through our sign-up page. So that anytime anyone comes to take that survey, whether it be through that panel, or you can actually put those that survey link out to the public through your other channels once it goes live. Then what you're going to see is, and I'll go into it in more detail in a couple slides, but we have a layer of filters that go onto all of our surveys so that you can dive into the information that you're getting a lot deeper. So you can see who is self-selected to come and who's a member panel, who's a local, who's a resident, who is in a certain age category, who is in a specific subregion. We have multiple layers of overlays that you can choose from to see the information that you're gathering with a lot of different lenses. So if we keep going here, so we do geolocate. So once you put in your address, we geolocate it. We say, hey, is this where you live? They confirm. And then we're able to do, this is one of the overlays. This is the subregion. So depending on how you guys break up the community, whether you name it wards or what that looks like, district, we can filter that overlay so that you can actually break down each survey with this specific overlay to see, hey, we're doing a park in Ward 1. Are we only hearing from Ward 3? Maybe we shouldn't completely base that decision off of that. Maybe let's do another survey or have an in-person meeting to support that. If you go next.
Councillor Fisher, you had a question?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
sorry.
We have 10,000 people.
Yeah.
We have primary, secondary, and tertiary urban.
Mhm.
And we have a significant. We have 40% rural.
Mhm.
And we have the oldest population in the county, if not the province.
Okay.
How do you get an accurate breakdown when you have all those variables, please?
Yeah, so it definitely goes to kind of the outreach that we have to do with that marketing, but we also, so if you see here, we also allow everyone to participate in a way that they're most comfortable with. So for example, you're saying you have an older population, so maybe our phone surveys are gonna be where they wanted to participate and the easiest way of participating. So we really try to take the barriers away from everyone in the community having the opportunity to participate by giving them the choice. When they sign up, they get to choose how they want to be contacted. There's a window. Hey, when do you want to be contacted? Making it very simple and very easy for people to want to sign up. A lot of the time, I feel like the problem that we think we have is that people don't want to share their opinion. That's really not the case. People are happy to share their opinion, but they want to do it in a safe way, and they don't want to be the one that's going against the masses. An opportunity to do this in a way that they're most comfortable with. Having the anonymity behind the survey is really helpful for building that panel and allowing people to come in and share their thoughts and not just have that selection based off of, hey, we really care about this topic.
Yeah, I have a thank you, Mr. Mayor. How do you get these 400 people, and how do you say it's anonymous when you've got their address and phone number?
So it's through our system. So they sign up. We don't have a running CRM,
What does that do?
like a contact database. So we don't have a running CRM that's like open for them. So I can't go in and look up Bob.
Got
So
my phone number and address. You don't have to look for anything else.
yes, but that is really just to get that information out to you when the survey does come and is presented to both you and the residents. There's full anonymity, so we don't know what you answer to the survey. So I don't know if you've taken the survey or not. That helps?
Okay. How do you get me to join your survey group?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, that's through a lot of different channels. So we curate those marketing pitches. So you have 1 minute a month to help the municipality of Huron get better. Yes or no?
Put that on our Facebook page or our here page or what you do.
All of them. Yeah. So we put it through any channels that you guys are open to sharing it with. So we really recommend if you guys have an online newsletter, that's a huge one to really get out. Having a QR code or even just a flyer, maybe in town hall or at other kind of different community areas around Huron East. Social media is a great one as well. Here at your town hall meetings, all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share something before I go back to council, and Barry, I'm gonna pull you into this one. We used to have that program through the county that we wanted to get everybody signed up on, and I know Huron East staff put a big effort into getting everybody on board. And this was for any time there was emergency information that the public should be made aware of. Whether there was a broken water main and we need a boiled water advisory, or whether there was a bad accident or something and there was needed for a detour, whether there was an extreme weather condition and people needed to avoid an area or something like that. The problem was, it was the government asking people to sign up. All we wanted was either an email address or a cell phone number, and we'd make sure that one of these events, if it happened, we were gonna notify everybody in Huron County that wanted to sign up. People did not trust it because it was coming from the government, and in fact, it ended up, there was lots of money spent on putting this whole thing together, and after what, 3 or 4 years, the whole thing got scrapped because we couldn't get enough of the population to even justify it. And it was too bad. People really thought it was Big Brother wanting to know stuff, and hey, the vaccine was gonna be aliens coming and everything else, and just, it was a disaster. So my concern is, especially when you're saying, you know, the municipality wants to use this information, how are you going to overcome that? Because Huron East was the best municipality out of the entire county, and our staff put a lot of effort into it and still couldn't get a good percentage of the population to sign on. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so, um. This is based on
So we are based out of the state, but to kind of both points, I'm based in Ontario, obviously drove down here today. But to kind of both points, it's a third party entity, which kind of takes away from what you were saying, Big Brother watching over. So what actually really helps, and we've gone back and forth over the years on, do we try to give you guys the reins and allow you guys to do it? Having that third party taking care of things is adds a level of comfort, unfortunately to say, with the resident, because then it can't be like, oh, they tampered with it. They only showed us what we wanted to see. And that's something that I definitely know that you guys deal with.
I guess my concern would be like, what kind of guarantees the participant have that their information is secure and not sold to them?
Yeah, I mean, I can sit here and say tons of things. We absolutely don't do that, and there's a lot of different ones. No, we are the third party apart from you guys. So we are that outside vendor that is curating those questions for you. Putting that survey out, and like when they go to that sign up page, it is outside of the municipality. So it is outside of your website.
Yeah, in place of protect people's information.
Yeah, so we use Amazon Web Services for all our hosting capabilities. So,
Stephanie.
Yeah, so like so really you're trying to get as much non-biased generic information as opposed to we're sending surveys currently to the appointed survey.
Yeah.
Other you're Canadian, what other Canadian municipalities are currently using it for utilizing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually just signed up Fogging Shores. I actually believe they've already launched their first survey, as well as Concordant. So two people, we actually met on the, and we have worked in previous years, just a one-off with the First Nations community, just to start that. But Fogging Shores and a long time.
How long has it been focused to expand into
Yeah. So that's where our CEO and co-founder is from. That's where he kind of started it. He actually is also on his council in the community, so that's kind of what ignited this fire to build Flashcode and just find a way to get you guys better information to work with. But I'd say I've been working here over a year, so that was kind of the real big push, is bringing kind of me on board. I've worked in community engagement in Ontario and Canada for 4 years now, previously with Staying the Table, if anyone has spoken to that. So kind of had kind of a background there, and then he really brought me in to build that awareness. And we've been to a couple different conferences now in Canada, so it's really growing. Okay, next slide. Great question. So like I kind of mentioned, so you pick the topic and we provide professionally crafted survey questions, 1 to 5, targeted to what your residents know. So a lot of the time when we go into a project, we want to ask, hey, what do you think about our sewage system? Most of the time residents don't know much about the sewer system and can't really give you real information from it. So we ensure that these questions are crafted to get the information that the residents have out of their brain to help you guys move forward. So a lot of real actionable data is being pulled from these questions. We do have a multitude of different ways we can ask questions. We have a ranking system. You can do, hey, you have $100, how would you spend it? You can really kind of go anywhere with our questions. You can also do pictures. We also have that word cloud, which I think you saw earlier, which allows you to kind of just give everyone an opportunity to share their opinion on whatever topic that we're talking about, to ensure you're gathering all that information. The residents do fully feel like they have shared everything they need to share with you at that point. What's also great about our cloud is you can click on any word and it will then filter all those responses based off of that keyword. So really making it easy for not only you guys to dive into that information, but also for your residents to review kind of what's being said around the community as well. Like I also said earlier, we draft and launch. So again, it's coming from that third party. So it's coming directly from us. Hey, here's a survey. It is only open for 48 hours. So we have an initial push out saying, hey, Huron East has launched the survey, click here to take it. And then at that 24-hour mark, again, for anyone, we do that secondary, so anyone who's checked off that box to receive both email and text, they'll get it through that different method. Just to ensure that we're getting all the responses that we possibly can for a survey. We have typically got the question, why aren't they open for a week to 2 weeks? And throughout the years at Flashco, we have found that the longer you keep a survey open doesn't mean more responses. You typically get the highest response rate the first time you send out that survey, and then again with that secondary push. And you can actually see that on our surveys. I think I have a picture of it. Oh, I lied. Yeah, here. So on the top of every survey page, so you'll see the response time, and then when it started, and then when it ended as well. So this is completely open to the public. Again, really focusing on building that trust and transparency with your residents to ensure that, hey, here's the information we got, here's the information you have as well, all the same. Also, we can keep moving through this, but also I do want to point out that anyone who does take the survey automatically gets an email sent out to them saying, thank you so much for taking the survey. Here's a link to see the responses. So again, closing that circle, really allowing them to say, hey, oh my gosh, my feedback was taken and the results are already here. So we really see a lot of really positive feedback for the communities on that part. But this is what your typical survey page is going to look like. So at that top left in the corner there, you see that drop down menu. So that's when I was talking about the different filters. So I think in a couple slides we'll get into it, but over right underneath that, you'll see the survey responses. Underneath that, I know it's a little bit small here, but you're able to see how many people out of the panel took it, and then that margin of error. So that plus or minus 5%. What filter, that time, and then the start and end date. And then if we move forward. So yeah, so here's just one of the examples of the filters that we have. So local zone, so if you gave that address and you confirmed it, then, and you are in the community, you are a local only, owner, non-owner, residency, age, gender. There's also one missing from there, and that's that member panel that I spoke to earlier. So if you're part of that initial kind of surge of invites to create that panel, then you are part of the member panel. But like I mentioned earlier as well, you also have the opportunity to put that survey out once it's live, but then you have that self-selection. So then that will show up in a red bar instead of the blue bar, and you can actually see the difference between the two. So here's just an example of one of the filters. So this is one of our age demographic filters. So you can really understand the trends, where they're coming from, the different demographics behind them. And again, that sub-regions filter. So breaking down that overlay. And here, yes, I knew I added this back in. So like I mentioned earlier, you can click on that cloud and really understand and dive into everything. And that's it. I know we've had a lot of questions so far, but you know, it's a little bit of a different tool. Not a lot of people, I don't think anyone actually really doing it the way we're happy to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Give it to me again, Kathy. I'm a little bit. How do you get the demographic and the filters? Can you explain the filters a little more, please?
So through like that sign up page, so you're asked a level of demographic questions, as well as you're asked to locate exactly where you are. So we have address, residency, age demographics, and gender. So that's where we get those subregions from. So we don't ask them, are you part of a specific district? Once we have that location, we work with you guys to say, hey, where are your district lines? And then we provide that overlay.
So what if you want to get a skewed representation? You go back to the public?
Yes. So we work to continuously, so when that member panel is being built, we're coming in and we're being like, okay, here are the buckets that we're seeing through the demographics. And then as that's going on, we're like, okay, do we need more buckets? Let's maybe push it out through social media because again, that's more female, it's younger. Or hey, maybe we need to do a mailer option and we look at how to maybe put something out on paper or like I said, a community event. Does that help?
A little bit, thank you.
Okay.
Good question. I guess the only thing that jumps out at me, Cassidy, is that I can't think of 5 things right now that I have a need to go to the public on that I'd feel comfortable with only asking 5 questions.
So, and that's something that a lot of people come to us with, but they think there's no way. This is actually something, I think was part of that we went through, with this they're like, we have to ask more questions, we have to ask more questions. And we promise you don't, you just have to ask them in a specific way. You have to ask the questions in a way that you're gonna get more information than you think. So the way we query questions, and our questions go through 2 different levels of to make sure that we're asking it in a way that your residents are going to be able to answer. So what you're actually getting from those 5 questions is a lot of really in-depth takeaways. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm definitely happy to share survey examples so you can see the questions and understand what's coming up.
And actually, that was going to be one of my questions is could you give us an example of something? And I don't want you to give the farm away for free. So the 5 questions that you would have asked and what that municipality was looking for. So we had an idea of the type of response they got and it was relevant for what they were trying to do.
Yeah, so honestly, one of my favorite survey topics that we really kind of say for everyone to find a response over, this is just a great general topic to do to better understand your community. And so in both community friendly and if you have a web browser up, you're able to look it up. It's very easy. Like I said, all of our surveys are open to the public for review. But we did community priorities specifically with Georgetown. And so we get your residents to rank the level of importance and satisfaction on a number of different topics. And what it actually gives you is it gives you some reason. So in the end, you get this graph and we have a median line going through being like, okay, this is just the general kind of level of satisfaction here. And then you can see where those specific things rank. So for Georgetown, I believe safety and security was super high importance, but really low satisfaction. So they're like, oh boy, we actually have to maybe allocate some resources here. Like we obviously haven't been paying enough time for this. And then their parts were super high importance, but really high satisfaction. They're like, okay, look, we're doing a really good job here. Maybe let's stick with what we're doing and then pull our focus over here. So in turn, that one question actually gave them a full ranking on everything going on within the community and allowed them to move forward specifically on kind of the top 3 spheres of importance to most
them. You talked about anonymity, and in this area, as we speak, there's a lot of scams, and as Councillor Fisher said, demographics, you know, they're on high alert. How do you get the trust of the residents to participate without, well, as we said, you know, their name and their phone number and where they live, that people aren't that giving?
Yes, no, absolutely. And that is something that we definitely deal with a lot. And for most of this platform, I say you guys can completely lean on us and you take it off your hands. In that sense, we do lean on you a little bit to let people know that the information is coming out from Flash. So giving them kind of a heads up, whether it be in this space or kind of via your newsletter or online platforms, letting them know, hey, we signed up with this really great survey tool, Flash Vote, and getting that name out there so that when people see it or people receive that call or however that goes, they're not clicking or they're not deleting automatically, just taking a second. And then once they go to that website, it's very, very reasonable. It's not a scam.
And that just leads me to another question. They say that online surveys are not safe.
Mhm.
So that's another.
Yeah.
Hurdle that
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we do ask them how do you use it? How do you use it? Is it over the phone? If so, here's the phone number to call. Or is it via text message? Do you want it on the phone? Or are you good with the online survey? Are you good with sharing it via email and having that? So that definitely does take away that barrier and allowing them to, hey, if you're not comfortable with online, that's totally fine. We're happy to do it for you.
Yeah, thank you. This is more for CAO. It's this seems to me like a lot bigger for our communication strategies. We always struggle. How are we trying to communicate with our price tag of $10,000 for 4,010? Is that something that's budgeted for 2024?
My report speaks to the fact that you guys consider putting that in the budget. Yeah, but it's not at this point in time until you guys say we'll consider it or you won't. I thought it was important that capacity came today and made council aware of Flash Vote and its power and its use. Certainly from a staff perspective, we've always struggled with surveys being what I call statistically accurate and not dominated at those two spectrums.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, 10,000, that's Canadian funds?
Yes.
And how many surveys a year?
So we say up to 6, but if you use 7, we drive down here and give you guys a personal high five. So it's unlimited. Typically, we see most communities doing 2 to 5, just again to that point of getting a lot of information. The information that you gather from these surveys, typically see the implementation of that take about 2 to 3 months in the community, which is why we see that 2 to 5 survey range. We actually had our first community, Georgetown, Texas, mentioned earlier, do their 7th survey, and our CEO Kevin actually flew down and gave them their high five. So it's definitely an option to do as many as you want, but typically we do see 2 to 5 based off of implementation and the information.
So we do 5.
Yeah.
We do parks and farming and recreation and taxes and something else.
Yeah.
And that's every 2.5 months, we're bugging them. We come back the next year and try to think of 5 more. Which I cannot. And then the third year, the same thing, you get, not voter apathy, but you know what I mean, you get constituent apathy
So
in
we
the second and third year.
Well, we actually do see a lot of people, a lot of different communities do the same survey year after year. Like we have a community in Minnesota who does the same snowplow removal survey every single year just to see if their satisfaction rating goes up. And every year they've actually gone up. Sometimes it's like 0.5%, but it does go up every year. So there is an opportunity, even though we don't have maybe new topics, there is an opportunity to continue to see.
You go get out. Thank you.
I'm not trying to make the sales pitch on their behalf, Councillor Fisher, but based on a conversation that we had earlier this evening, I'm gonna suggest that if we ask the public for some input and we got some information and we acted on it, they may be more inclined to give us information next time around.
Definitely.
You had mentioned one-off.
Yeah.
Is that like a test drive more or less? Because I like also feel worried about rural and older population where you call them and they're just gonna hang up.
Yeah.
You know, like they and their computer, they don't. They don't wanna do surveys, they, you know, that's the thing that worries me most.
Yeah, and I don't wanna sound like a broken record, but having that sign up and having them say, okay, like having them say yes to you can't phone me, and also allowing them to give that. It kind of take away that barrier. It really does kind of take away, because they've already consented to, yes, you can call me when a topic arrives. And it does take under a minute, but it's quite quick, but I definitely do understand, so for that one off, so if you wanted to just run one survey, then we can do one survey. It's not 10,000, but it's, I would have to work out the pricing for that.
I guess I'm still just worried that as soon as you mention survey, you're just gonna.
It's something that we've worked on over the years, like Flashcode, we've been working on it for 10 plus years, and like Huron co-founders specifically, have been really curating a way to remove those barriers, because people don't want to take surveys, and surveys is easy to do, but, to the mayor's point, once they see those results, once they see that you are actually taking into account what they say, there is an excitement to share your opinion. And again, it's a relationship building. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been in community engagement here for a while, and it really is kind of been building transparency, sharing all that information that I've shared, especially with Flashcode in a very quick,
The Roman timeline. Are there any final questions that council has? Cassidy, thank you very much. I do appreciate the
Thank you guys.
together on the. But we are down to the.
No, I think Cassidy covered it really well, and I appreciate Cassidy. You had a tough crowd here. You answered all the questions. I think I respect maybe some council's concern that there would be sort of the trust factor there. I think the value of it is it's a cooperative effort between the Huronese, who people will have at least some sense knowing that we're promoting this, we're pushing it out. That it's sort of there'll be a little bit more trust factor. We're not going to convince everybody. I understand that. But I think the important part is trying to get a good diversification of demographics out there in terms of who's responding. And I think for me, the part that really struck home was the piece about when we put surveys out on a particular subject matter and it's controversial, let's just say. I remember doing surveys on the whole cannabis thing when cannabis first came out, whether you want to be a host or not a host and all that. People were very vocal about it, right? You had the two extremes, the people that absolutely wanted it to be permitted and the people who were very opposed to it. You never really heard from that middle demographic of kind of like, well, here's my concern, but I'm okay with it. I think that's the value of the tool. I'm hoping that it can provide us, is give us a little bit more distribution of the responses.
I'm always a firm believer in good information is worth funding too. Again, when you municipality, the price tag can. I would suggest that if it's something that you want to do going forward, certainly it would not be until we discuss it. But even if you were going to do it, it would probably not even take within of 2024, because I think not only would we try and put the message out so that the public was aware of it on all of our communication strategies, but also some sort of note in the tax bill that was mailed to every resident so that they were aware they're getting a phone call It's someone that is working in partnership with the municipality, not just someone that's phoning up and wanting to know their opinion. So it would be quite a way down. Yeah, that strategy.
Well, according to the recommendation, it appears that you want a motion tonight to pass it.
My understanding is the motion is just to, that we would consider it during the 2024 budget.
I read it.
Anyways,
My recommendation, my report was to staff's recommendation to consider flash boat services as part of the 24 budget.
my comments about the whole thing, got to do with how small we are, the age, we talked about. We have 3 sources right now that we utilize. could utilize. We have our online Facebook page that accounts for our municipality users. We have the year program where surveys are done. And we also have the website. We have enough methods. And I think that we can utilize them better. As CAO said earlier on a different topic, we don't have $1,000. We don't have $10,000. I will not be supporting this. I think we can underutilize 3 systems that we have right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Sharp got half of me. And I agree with him on against this. Initially, when I listened to it, I thought it wasn't the 10,000. I guess it was the 10,000 that caught me first. And then when I listened again, I thought that this is very, not frivolous, but I didn't see the importance of it. Or why we would even think of doing something like that, and that's where it sounds like Sharp comes from, because we have vehicles now. I don't see the merit in it. Even with $10,000 on a $20 million budget, the merit is not there, the return on investment is not there for me, so I'm gonna be against it as well, thank you.
Again, beefing up our own, what we've got, our here, like, is the anonymity there with those surveys also?
Yes.
And to your point, Mr. Mayor, of somebody calling you up, there's still not gonna be that trust. They can give you all the credentials in the world. I don't think at this point in the world right now, people are gonna trust a phone call to give up that information. I think it's really gonna be a hard sell back.
I agree with that sentiment, and the one thing that to me would be an advantage of, first of all, if the municipality was going to send even the first contact information, it wouldn't be till sometime in the spring, they wouldn't even setting something up. That would also give us, between now and then, lots of time to talk to the 2 relatively local municipalities that apparently have the service and find out how they feel about the service, whether they think they got good information back. I'm not happy to go ahead and just write a check for something, but if I thought I was really getting input from the public on something that they cared about and direction that they wanted us to go in, then I think it's worth it. But do we just sign up to the sake of saying, hey, this is what we can?
A different way of going about it, because the government gets emails every day, claiming to be something that they're not. And I think people are on very high alert, and I don't think anybody's just it coming from this office specifically. I don't know.
I'm hoping that both between the demographics need to be extremely different than ours, and hopefully they'd be dealing with the same situation and or at least hear from their staff a beneficial of that. Again, before I'm not ready to agree to it. It's not something that we would be doing before sometime next year. And all this motion is asking is, will we even consider? all of them. In my opinion, I'm not ready to vote until at least I get some feedback from somebody else of what their task might be.
I would agree. Once there was some good information around somebody in charge of comparison. I see it as a, you know, like 180 from what I'm hearing around. We're looking at 200 to 400 people of 9,000. I think we can, you know, in 9 that's still more than the 5 that we get now. I think it's a good tool. The cost to me is kind of, you know, not from my head is stuck at it, but I do think if you're Tara Lynn and our economic that's a really good tool to have. Her disposal, she could hit bang, bang, bang and get, you know, 48 hours, some pretty quick response back to me. Her decision to what we have to do. So I'm not really willing to. I would love more information to see how it could benefit us. I don't think this is meant for the, you know, we have to get demographics, we have to get exchange, but it's not everybody down the line. If you're not comfortable giving information, don't give information. We all online bank. We all do our different, you know, computer things that come in on our little Facebook surveys and marketplaces and that. Don't change what you're doing now. If you're not comfortable, don't do it. If you are comfortable, that's input we're not getting. So I think more information is definitely needed. A costing mechanism, if it's 5,000 a survey, that's pretty expensive. But if it's 2,000, we get some valuable information that we can turn. I'm not going to use a word, but if we can turn a business into something coming because we found out what we needed, that's a good ROI.
How many people have signed up to the existing communication engagement platform?
I wouldn't know that number off the top of my head, would you know? Not off the top.
But we can. That's a very good question to ask based on it. Because if we need to, that's the problem.
Yeah, we only got a couple, like if we don't have 100 people at some that, I don't see the point in trying to get 10 people signed up to another platform. We're already utilize one of them.
So, again, I'm not keen, and I, from what little I have read through the presentation before we got, I certainly wasn't keen on it because of the experience that we had through the county program and trying to get people to sign up. But all this motion is saying is that, is it something that we're willing to discuss next spring, because that's when we will finalize it. And I would like staff to at least contact the other 2 municipalities and see what kind of response we had and how well they thought it even worked. And if it was great, then we've got something to consider. If they're not happy with it, then why would we bother? So I think the results will, that they feel they get, will help us be better. Does anybody want to put a motion on the floor just that this is something we consider?
I would say we should defer and really get more information.
Which I think that's exactly what the motion is, and maybe the motion's not even necessary, because all it says is just to have the discussion in 2024.
Is that what it says?
That is sort of the way I read it, that the council of the municipality of Huron needs to agree to consider flash vote license services to support the gathering of statistically valid community input for engagement. So
As part of our budget.
it does say as part of the 2024.
Does that mean we have to lock in a 3-year contract?
That's just one of the options. And the reason for that option, when I read it, is that the original $4,000 setup fee goes by the wayside if you do a 3-year contract. If you want, you can just do 1/3.
You do 1 year, you can do 1 year, but it's gonna be 14,000 for a year. That's all.
The bottom line is, we're not asking anybody to spend anything tonight. The question is, do you want staff to do any follow-up and bring back any other information? If you don't want them to even look into it, then don't have them do anything. If you're willing to have them bring back more information for you to consider, then that's all the motion's for. Councillor Stick.
Really, the motion, just for more information.
Okay, so you're moving it?
I would, yes.
Okay. Do I have a seconder to move the motion to consider?
But I'm not clear on the consider. That one doesn't do.
Nothing is passing because it goes to the 2024 budget. The entire thing will come back to this group, the city area. And I agree, I wouldn't pass it either unless we've got some of the answers from these arguments. Larry, you have your hand up there as well.
I'll second it again, it's for information purposes, and we're not committing to anything. We're basically looking at budget time and getting the information back. It's gonna tell us, getting there at that time, if we say no. And, yeah.
And that's all I'm expecting this motion to indicate.
Oh, that's all staff are looking for. Just want you to consider it.
Any other final questions? All those in favor? Wow. Okay, that is the decision of council, so we're not doing anything at this time. My personal request, I wouldn't mind if you take the opportunity to at least contact, these other municipalities.
Yep.
Sometime down the road, and see what kind of results they get.
Yep.
Councilor Christian,
Count, please, Mr. Mayor.
he was 3 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cassidy. Pathetic? Okay.
Once you hear it, you can't unsay it. Oh, it's for you. More information for-
Okay.
But, yeah.
Thank you.
That's first.
We are at, so you already got the vote there, so that's done. 12.2, workplace strategy policy.
Yeah. Yeah, so council had already kind of recommended that I bring back policies related to the vacation policy, the flexible work policy, employee volunteer policy, and the employee recognition policy. And so I brought those back. Compensation was just a little bit something we had a conversation recently when we were doing the pay equity review, so I brought that, put it in together, so. Happy to speak with council in terms or answer any questions council have on any of those policies I presented.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I moved this at whatever meeting it was, and listening to it this morning and last night, I wondered about the Employee of the Week award system, or whatever you would call that. That may create a little bit of animosity, tension, whatever, and do we really need that part? If we could cherry pick this process at all, I would can't say much keen on that one as it was at the start, but otherwise, so amenable to the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
If I could answer just follow up, I'm not sure it would be a cherry pick process. I think it's staff driven, so it's not me going and saying, you know, a certain employee, I'm gonna pull them out. It's staff driven. I think as staff, most staff do recognize when people go above and beyond on a regular basis. And so I think it'll be, I don't think there'll be animosity from this. I think there's a lot of staff that do things above and beyond, and we all as staff see it and appreciate it. We're just not recognizing it. So I think formalizing them, I think, is a good step.
I wonder in that regard, when I was working out, sometimes it was recognized that this function is once a year or maybe twice a year, because it does give a little more onus on these, the guys in charge that they're gonna have to be doing this fairly regularly. And sometimes they can do a little bit of record keeping and then there could be some recognition. Once or twice a year.
Good point.
Remember what the first thing was, it's like 600 here, did something new, wasn't it?
Yep. Yep. Right, depending if you, I just put 1,200, just thinking that if there were 2 people, you don't want to necessarily, you might have 2 people that really did something special 1 month, so you might have 2, so I just kind of put 2 extremes. I think doing it on a monthly basis rather than waiting to the end of the year is the important part. I think that's the part I'm really trying to emphasize is, is really bring it out through the course of the year when people do things, to give them that appreciation close to the time frame that they've done the activity, as opposed to 12 months down the year. At the end of the day, I can say right now is, Barry and I are going to forget probably what someone might have done back in January when it comes to December, right?
I think that's a good point in the fact that, I'd hate for an employee to go above and beyond in January and not be recognized until the I suppose, that's a reasonable statement. I would move on. Okay.
It's not the money part. It's part of that process.
Counselor, Stefan.
Want to ensure, and I'm 100% for it. It's like all of a sudden, oh shit, it's March, we didn't do January, February because we got caught in budget or we didn't do it. We've got to make sure that on the 5th of the month, that person's recognized on our social, on our whatever, and we'll see that follows, because if you don't, and with that instances around where a lot of good intentions, but we're lacking in the.
Oh, that's a very good point. Sure.
I like the monthly one too, and it goes farther than just the employee feeling good about something. If an employee goes home and tells their family, and you can just kind of boost the family morale and the employees morale. But they get a little harder next month. So for what it costs, I think it'll have a good benefit. Yeah, thank you, Mr. I just wanted to use to grab that. Considering like two people, because what I see is, obviously the office staff, the public works, you have daycare, and recreation. That's right. You have different departments. Just wondering how that's all going to kind of, yeah.
I tried to kind of explain it in the report there, or the policy. I mean, basically, the department heads would, be their responsibilities. We have 2 department head meetings basically a month. So first department head meeting, it'll always be, we have a structured agenda, so they would always be in the agenda. Okay, anybody doing outstanding this month? Have you heard anything or anything submitted? And then we would review them at the last one of the month and say, okay, who should be nominated, whatever it might be. And so it's important to look. I don't think it's going to necessarily going to be every department is going to have somebody. It's going to be someone's going to stand out, whether it's one. This might be the odd occasion where there are 2 people that stood out for whatever reason. I mean, I've always used the example. During the snowstorm last year at Christmas, Lyle slept over at the shop. There's a perfect example of somebody that went above and beyond, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of staying out there so we can get out and plow the roads in the morning and open things up. There's a perfect example, right?
Okay.
File, somebody else in the shop. He didn't get bit. I don't need it.
The fact that I heard department heads meet twice a month, my hope is that first of all, the department heads make their recommendations or comments, and then they discuss it amongst themselves and they make the decision. So the bottom line is that they're hopefully going to recognize whichever employee went beyond the end of their at that time frame. And in fact, if there's an opportunity for 2 that were exceptional, that's fine. Thank you.
Hey, there might be a month where there's 4, right? But there might be a month where there's none, right? So I think it's good. I'm trying to use kind of some averages there, but right? Hell, if we get 4 every month, that's pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah. 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 Well, at least this person showed up for work every day. Do I have the mover and secretary?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Sheridan and Councilor Steffler. That the council of the municipality of Huron approve the following workplace strategy policies. Compensation policy, the vacation policy, the flex work policy, which is just an 8-month trial, the employee volunteer policy, and the employee.
They accept you, 30 days, 6 weeks. Is that our norm? Is that the norm in the area? I don't know. I get 2 weeks, but that's.
I'm,
Is that the norm?
I'm surprised, but it's unfortunate that it's becoming the norm after 15 years. And I can tell you right now that if you went back 15 years, you had to work 25 years before you got 6 weeks. So it unfortunately is changing, and it's changing quite a bit.
So we are upping it from 5 weeks to 6 weeks? We're
Yes.
putting another week's holidays on?
Correct.
So I'll be voting against the policy.
Reasonable. As an employer, I think it, in the private sector, I think it seems accessible.
Well, this is just fine.
But
If you think about it, the cost of the municipality, I mean, that's 6 weeks. If they're not here, you have to replace them one way, now you put that whole other cost on top. I mean, if you can't get your holidays in 4 weeks, you know, you must be a real traveler or something, I never heard of it, that's okay. That's your opinion, not to be reflected by the way people.
I'm gonna say this is becoming quite common.
Go ahead.
I just want to follow up on that. Just my only point is though, is we're trying to be proactive in terms of recruitment and retention. So we're trying to stand out above and beyond. And I hear what you're saying, but it is one way for us to stand above and beyond. There's no financial implication. Nope. No.
It's just not replacing them now. It was doubling up.
Except for the fact that you can always debate the issue of the fact that the person is on holidays, they were getting paid anyways, but technically the work may not be getting done.
But, to your point, I mean, gave so zero impact.
The budget will still be the same. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as say carries because I voted. We have nothing correspondence. Finished. Councilor reports.
I don't believe this is. Everything.
No. Although tomorrow's going to be. So just to let everyone know, this is normally our council minutes are anywhere from 3 to 350. It's a little over 4. Number of pages. It does build up. Any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars that you need to bring up?
I just have a, but I can ask you to please take back tomorrow if you would, about the homeless shelter, the heart home. The customer information next week, that capacity. Reading this, there 2 weeks. Located online. Comes up to the Lakeside United Church, and comes up to choices for change, which is no longer CMHA now. So if you just bring that to Barb at the housing or wherever, just so that could get updated, if there are people looking to connect with it, paying a good chunk of money for it.
That's a very good point, and yes, then I will do my best to try and remember that. Any?
Thank you. I just want to report, Blue Water Recycling, final meeting of the year. There's a couple things that kind of stuck out. I don't know, do we do the Christmas tree chipping program? You know what? Really? No. Okay. It is a free service that they do, but this one tree is located in one area and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, well, you didn't know if it was a request or, you know, if that's something that people talk about. And the only other thing that came up during, so we're getting close to when the producers take over the responsibility of recycling. One of the issues that were brought up, that Francis, the president's been dealing with, or is dealing with, come April 1st, let's say if you build a new house and you move in the end of April, you call up and you get your recycling. You build an apartment, sets. You can't give you recycling containers because they don't want to take on any more. Yeah, exactly. George Finch and I brought that up about the apartment coming up, you know? And he says, no, they call us up for a recycling bin. He says, I cannot give them.
They just don't have the.
No, the producers don't want it anymore. They've already met their targets that's been set out by the government. So George says, so what do we do with the garbage from the apartment building? He says, Francis says, well, you call up and he says, we'll send out a bin. And George says, well, who pays for that? And he says, you do. If you own the apartment building, you pay for the bin. Okay, they're not.
Get recycled, Deputy Mayor?
That's, yeah. That's another thing. He says, if you open anything like that after April, the house is okay. He said at the first, he says they fought for that. They weren't even going to allow new houses. But they finally got that in. So I think this is still an issue that they're working on. But as it stands right now, you're SOL.
But I think we certainly need to both our. Because at the end of the day, it's the producers, you know, the waste that are supposed to be responsible. We're not supposed to be finding a way to pass it off to somebody else. And the whole idea is the province wanted intensification in the housing market, so building an apartment building is the best way to get that. And if that is avoiding the entire system that they wanted put in place, that the producers paid for it, how come they're not connecting the dots on their own?
All good points, but the producers are stating the government has set out targets. The garbage that's being collected now already exceed the targets for 2026, and that's targets below 2030, 50% of that point there. But as it stands right now, that's the way it is. Anyway, I think they're still working on that. And I mean, the industrial and commercial sector, that's another one all by itself. So, well, yeah. The only other thing I did ask about was I know we talked different times about green bin collection and stuff. They can and will offer that. Blue Water will offer one truck on the second week if we use the same truck. So, I mean, it would be one way to sort of address the problem that we've heard here at the council table, especially in the urban areas where people complain about smell of garbage and stuff like that. So they would move to garbage pickup every week. So 1 week they get recycling, the next week they pick a clean bin.
As well as garbage each week.
Garbage each week, yes.
Okay.
I would leave it at that. However, there's a cost of this. What I so that
Any other members, anything in their other meetings or something? Okay, anything in their request?
I'm curious, how are you making out with the delegation request for Loma for the long term?
So delegation request was submitted. I haven't heard back whether we've been accepted or not.
That's in January, right? Yeah. 21st.
Yeah, it's usually the couple weeks before. You don't get too much heads up.
Be prepared.
We don't have a proposal yet.
I had some ask Barry under request, but I didn't write it on the show.
That's cool.
I was gonna ask Barry something, and I can't remember. I can't remember what it was now. Oh, yes, I do remember. Hey, the whole leaf thing. I was curious what comments you had on how well it went because, see, to get them sucked up, I saw people trying to rake them in on the street this year. How well did people bag them? Did the pickup service work? What was the overall outcome?
I'm gonna say it, probably 70%. Important things to monitor. As far as staffing and a lot easier for staff. Who cares? If you're from Lisa, that for a load count, yeah. People taking the compost or taking the compost back.
Glad to hear that.
Also in line with that, about the change in the pickup process. And whether it was a lot of leaves breaking the road, various crew had the orange tags they were putting on the door, giving them information in case. Overall, I think it went well.
Glad to hear that. Larry?
You were gonna, Southwood is gonna get back to you about the property for the back in the Canada thing. I thought I had a meeting and
We're waiting, and once every 60 days, it's pretty soon now.
at the meeting, and then they're gonna give you an alternative person might be interested in.
Yeah.
Time frame hasn't expired.
You're
Getting close.
I forgot to mention that, after we're supposed to. The Cranbrook Hall has been successful in grant programs and got 17,000. Yeah.
Are there any names with the final announcements?
Christmas parade, starting at 6:30, and then afterwards there's hot chocolate and goodies at the fire, or not the fire hall, but the community center. So anybody's welcome to go to it if they wish. That's the 15th.
Motion for the water and sewer committee, Jacobs contract review. Councilor Wilby. That the council of the municipality of Huron East waive the procurement process and accept the renewal of the Jacobs contract for a 2-year term. Comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, too, if I may, please. Is there a 90-day or a 3-month out clause, and what about pricing?
I don't remember exactly what the number was, but financially, it certainly gave us the best by signing this long term. I did also ask a question at the meeting, and there are escape clauses if there's a need for us to get out of it. So just because we signed a 10-year term doesn't mean we're locked in for 10 years. But of course, you don't want to get rid of it unless there's a need to get rid of it also. But we did discuss the fact that we've been pretty happy with Jacob since they come on board.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah. All those in favor? Yep. We are done. Ron, can I get any? Am I missing something?
No.
Or-
Nope.
Can I get a mover in a second? The deal that's there, that be it here that the bylaw 84 of 2023, the bylaw to delegate authority to the CAO and treasurer for purchase and sale of land agreements be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be fixed thereto. And Councilor Morrison, you had a question.
This is just, open-ended, no conditions attached, every property available. delegation, so
No, it's no different than, I'm still gonna come to council in terms of whatever offers you get. You're just giving me the authority to sign, so I don't have to come back to council with a signatory bylaw every time. That's all you're doing. I'm still gonna come to you and basically say, what offer do you want to accept? What do you want to do? It's just really just delegating the authority to myself and the president. You did it for the Brussels lots when we went back and looked at it with the Venastra property. That's not really applicable because you only did it for the Brussels lots. We're just expanding that.
And that was exactly the discussion that Councilor Morrison and I had was, he recognized the fact that talked about the Brussels law. For this one was municipality, and if it was specifically to do with the lots in Astra, should it just say that? And I didn't have an answer one way or the other. And I kind of understand exactly what you just said to us, but I also understood Councilor Morrison's concern about the fact that it basically says, yeah, you can go ahead and sell whatever. I realize we get the money, but you can go ahead and sell it.
It's also fine with our.
No, it's just delegating the authority. Because typically it's the clerk and the mayor that have to execute all the agreements, so we're just delegating who's gonna be the authority to sign those. That's all.
So my signature would still end on any document that.
No, your signature would be on the bylaw that would give the authority to myself and the treasurer to execute those agreements.
Well, you don't have to come in and sign every purchase agreement.
At the end of the day, I'm still gonna come to council whenever there's an opportunity for us to sell or buy a piece of property. Right, and get your direction. I'm not gonna go and just sell and buy property. Trust me.
Would that give you authority to do that? If you thought this is good, I gotta do it, or would you have to wait?
I'd still come to council. I'm not gonna go buy
You
or
kind of
sell a
needs 2
property.
weeks, maybe a little, but
Yeah.
you still would.
I'd still come to council.
And when they declare that, you can put in there.
Mhm.
All offers.
I'm gonna say yes and no to that one. I understand the that in there. The argument that was made was they found in the 11th hour, trying to finalize something. If in fact it's gonna cost more to have council gather to discuss it than what the change is going to be on the offer, is there merit to better just let the CAO go?
Hopefully, council that votes yes or no.
No,
We have to prove it.
but this is when the deals, when you guys have already given direction, and basically for the lawyers to sign the deal, someone has to execute the agreements, right? It's just giving me the authority to do those, because our lawyer's coming to me, where's the delegatory bylaw that says that Brad and Stacy can sign these agreements? That's what he's looking for.
So it still comes to council.
Every time we're gonna sell something, it's gonna come to council, yes, absolutely. Your direction will be followed.
But you're explaining it, there's still a bylaw that he's still signing to give you the authority to do that.
Well, that's once, right?
After that.
Right.
Well, the bylaw I will be signing is the one that was passed tonight. After that, it does become theirs. But what CAO is saying is that if somebody came with an offer of something to purchase, we would bring that offer to council. It's only the day that the documents have to be signed at the local office that we would bring that the authority to do.
Policy is already written to basically give us that authority. It's just we need to have a delegatory bylaw, that's all.
Yeah, I was going to say, we passed the land disposition policy a while ago, so that already gave that authority too, but that also stipulated that these types of agreements come to council, council's approving everything. It's just the end of the day signature that goes on the page at the lawyer's office. So the policy was approved, I think, a couple months ago. And this is just the bylaw to wrap that up with what it says in the policy.
Guess where I'm getting lost, I agree with that through you, sorry, that's true. I agree with that, that's the bylaw that goes ahead to allow you to sign them. Getting lost is if there's all of a sudden changes at the end, that money goes up or down, which you stated, That's where I'm getting lost.
And I may have given a bad example, but I've certainly, I've seen situations where the deal will change at the end, and sometimes you need a 24-hour extension for something to get finalized, because maybe they couldn't get something back, or we couldn't get something in time. And technically, then that's not what council agreed to. Would you want to call a council meeting to approve that minor change?
Minor.
Well, sometimes a 24-hour extension is a minor change, because you actually had a closing date.
$4 wise.
Al, and I'm not sure I've ever seen a dollar-wise one, but I know that Joe and Jack gave to make a 11th hour change. That it was, everybody was ready to sign in. Oh, we need to-
There's a dollar amount change. Absolutely, I'm coming back to council. I'm not gonna make that decision. Absolutely.
And I have no problem with doing that, but I just, I'm comfortable with it not being in this signed money. If it is a dollar figure. Understand about the time wise and stuff.
We bring the bylaw back and revise it.
That's just me. That's where I'm sort of stuck on.
Provide some clarity, for sure. We'll just defer it.
No, you're not the only one that had the concern. When Justin asked me about it, I hadn't read it, and even when he explained it to me, what he had read, I thought it was odd that it wasn't specific. I know when we talked about the Brussels one, we felt that, all right, it said Brussels, so everybody had a good understanding, but technically, if there was any other land in Brussels that they wanted to sell, they technically have the authority to do.
And I would just state, there's no wording in that Brussels delegation either that says to a certain amount or money changes or anything like that. It's basically the same bylaw, you're just opening it up for different areas of the municipality. I believe it's the same process that we go through now with the Brussels subdivision.
I think maybe just a
I'd bring forward.
reference to the policy.
And the policy says the same thing too, but I can reference the policy, I can revise the bylaw and bring it back next council meeting.
Okay, so we can bring it back. If council, like, it doesn't have to be signed tonight. It's not critical. Councilor McGrath?
Well, it's the latest previous intervention of email. If the CEO came to this, our thing, you could all be notified by email, either yay or nay. Facts, and you respond to that email.
I don't think we can
No.
do that.
No, we would have to have that in our procedural
We
bylaw.
have to actually have a council meeting and vote.
Could be a quick Zoom, could be a quick Zoom meeting, but again, it's gotta be.
If you send me an email. But I use my wife to hack my email.
But I think what we're getting way too caught up in this. I think the whole point of this is when you guys have already given your direction, the agreement has been signed and executed, and we go to the lawyer's office, someone has to sign all the documents. Bought and sold a house, you know all the documents you got to sign. That's what we're trying to get the authority to sign, right? You've given your direction, the agreement's been done. Now it's the day of closing, and you're signing all the documents at the lawyer's office. That's all we're trying to get the authority for.
I have no problem with that. It's just when you start changes.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
that's where it starts.
Then in fairness, if it doesn't state that in here, if I can make the suggestion that just change the bylaw to state that you have the authority to finalize everything based on what council has approved. And that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I presume you do need to rewrite that.
Yeah.
I think I already kind of over a second on
Yes,
this,
you
so
did.
what you do.
We can just change that the bylaw be deferred to the next meeting,
Okay,
if that's
so-
comfortable with the mover and the seconder. It was Councillor Deal and Deputy Mayor McClellan.
Go ahead.
Does that relate specifically to clerk Rudy and CAO?
No, just the CAO and the treasurer.
it does not contain names, so that if those roles were to change, it still
So-
lies with that position.
With the change of the treasurer or CAO. I'm just wondering if that should be revisited at that time.
And we could do that, although the bylaw is now going to state that they're only authorized to sign off. So if they did anything that council hadn't approved, then technically that's breaking the law. And both those positions are fiduciaries, so they are each responsible to tattletale on the other if something goes wrong. By law, they are responsible to do it.
So basically, when they come to the table with the deal, we read the deal, we say, okay.
Then at that
Or
point,
we have to go, then.
at that point, they have the authority to finalize all the documents with the lawyer. Correct. Okay, I think we're all on the same page. So both the mover and the seconder are deferred. Okay, thank you. And can I get a mover and a seconder for the consent? Councilor Deal and Councilor Dalton, that be it hereby resolved that 85 for 2023, a bylaw affirming the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those. Motion carried. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Deal, Councilor Fisher, that the time now being 10:47 p.m. The regular meeting do now adjourn. Thank you, folks.